Part 79. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 788. Forget it, it's not necessary. The risks outweigh the benefits of forcibly taking away the fragments of the Shanhai Zhang Sutra. Sutingyu placed the fragments on the ground next to the two of them, raised his head and glanced at the automatic fire extinguisher. With a weak hold of his right hand, the meteor rod appeared. The tip of the stick straightened out, pierced the automatic fire extinguisher, and triggered the alarm switch. Sutingyu quickly took back the meteor stick and quickly left the toilet. Hurry, the police are calling the police over there. Go quickly. Taking advantage of the fact that there was less security at the door and the invisibility effect was still there, Sutingyu slipped out smoothly. Hurry up, the next check-in point. As soon as she came out, Sutingyu was thinking about her next check-in point. She had to rush there quickly. She didn't want to experience such a powerless feeling. The museum is full of historical relics, and the panels have responded to the historical relics. This is a direction. You can look for historical relics, but historical relics, there are generally very few private ones, right? I don't know if there is an antique street in Siwenman. If historical relics are treasures, then it would be a good idea to go to the antique street to pick them up. After an hour. Sasson Style Street. That's it, luckily we caught up. Sutingyu stepped into the street and looked around, finding that both the costumes of the pedestrians and the style of the buildings were very different from the outside. Siwenman is a city on the water. It is extremely difficult to see natural scenery such as desert forests here. It seems to be restored. However, it seems that there are relatively few tourists, and they are all locals. Sutingyu's panel has not been refreshed yet, so she can only wait for it to refresh while walking around. I don't know what accidents will happen this time. After finally having some free time, Sutingyu hurriedly searched online for places like Antique Street. If there really were such places, he wrote down the location and route. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for completing the check-in achievement of visit here in the Sasson Style Street. The sixth journey point is Century Tower. Please arrive at the target site within 1 hour. Thank you for your cooperation. Here we are. Sutingyu searched for the location of the Century building, but was slightly stunned. This location seems to be the place where you saw the sign. It's just right, you can go and gather. When the check-in point was refreshed, Sutingyu was about to leave. Suddenly, the ground shook, making many pedestrians unsteady. Huh? Could it be an earthquake? Sutingyu steadied her body and hurried towards the intersection of Sasson Style Street. The earthquake on the ground became more and more intense, and the people nearby looked panicked and confused, all in a state of panic. As Sutingyu ran, he suddenly lowered his head and looked at the ground beneath his feet. Under the ground, the man-made land is being ravaged and destroyed by the storm formed by the sea water below, and it is still rising. Sutingyu changed her direction. The moment she left the original ground, the surging sea water burst out of the ground like a giant beast emerging from its cage. Sutingyu turned around and looked around. Sea water spurted out from many surfaces. The sea water spread and gradually raised the water level. We've arrived at the intersection. Sutingyu knew that an accident had happened, so he didn't go too far. After Sutingyu stepped out of the street and turned around to look at the Sasson Style Street, her pupils shrank. The raging waves of tens of meters surrounded most of the beach of the Sassoon Street near the sea, like a pair of terrifying giant hands, closing, covering, and finally crushing it to death. Sutingyu stared at it for 2 seconds, then turned and left. After finding his bicycle parked outside, he rushed towards the sixth check-in point without stopping. Half an hour later, the former Sasson Style Street sank into the sea and was completely swallowed up by the huge waves. Century Building. According to the previous check-in point refresh rules, after completing the check-in point this time, you should be free for a while. Sutingyu rushed to the door of the building, first found a place to park the bicycle, and then walked in a few steps. Just now, I could see a flag outside, so there should be people there. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for completing the Visit Here achievement at Century Tower. Nothing to follow. Sure enough. Sutingyu turned off the panel and then took the elevator to the 9th floor. Century Tower has dozens of floors and is hundreds of meters high. It is also the tallest building in SurvivalGame. After successfully reaching the 9th floor, Sutingyu felt worried. I just caught a glimpse of the sign outside, but the spatial structure inside the building was very unfamiliar. For a while, Sutingyu didn't know which direction to go. It's so confusing in here. Sutingyu walked straight against the wall with windows, checking each place one by one. All players have to check in to refresh, so now I may not meet anyone, unless I happen to check in here or nearby. I can get there as soon as possible. Sutingyu muttered in his heart, looking casually. Take a quick look, hoping to find a familiar face. In front of a men's shoe store, a few men had just come out. One of them seemed to have seen something and quickly reported to the person in front. Boss, I seem to have seen members of Seeing. Over there. The man pointed in one direction, and it happened to be Sutingyu who was looking around. Boss, I remember that this girl appeared next to Gucci in both the Children's Day Dungeon and the Dragon Boat Festival Dungeon. There was a hint of surprise in Xiao Xi's eyes. He withdrew his hand that wanted to smoke and stared at Sutingyu over there with interest. It seems that this is the first time that such a close woman has been around Gucci for so long. Boss, this girl might be Gucci's lover. Good friend. Xiao Xi's eyes were even more interested. Ever since the Children's Day Dungeon ended, Xiao Si wanted to check Sutingyu's identity, but he never found anything. Obviously, he was being protected. Stand up. Is he being cared for? Then the Gu family really has this ability, so that they can't find anything. Xiao Si, bring people here. Looking at the situation now, Sutingyu failed to find a companion and was left alone. Yes, boss. Except for Xiao Si, the other three men rushed in the direction of Sutingyu at the same time. Huh? Someone is looking at the little fairy. The gazes of Xiao Si and the others were a little intense, and Sutingyu soon noticed it. Huh? These three people are weird. Sutingyu noticed that someone was approaching her. It looked like they were coming with bad intentions. Huh? That's Brother Xiao Si. Sutingyu scratched his head and finally pulled out this person. Hey, our boss is looking for you, come with us. The three of them blocked all possible escape routes for Sutingyu. Their tone sounded like discussion but also threatening. Sutingyu blinked his big eyes and looked very confused. Looking for me? Are you looking for the wrong person? I don't know you. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 789. Haha, it's okay. It's enough for us to know you. Please go ahead. The attitude of the three of them was very tough and they stared at Sutingyu closely. Alas. There is no way, the little fairy is really too popular. Sutingyu sighed inwardly, his face still looking very innocent. Oh, that's good. Sutingyu was brought to Xiao Si by the three of them. The latter looked Sutingyu up and down, and then shook his head with a puzzled expression. Is this what Gucci likes? Little Lolita? It's like she hasn't grown up yet. Of Sutingyu, Miss XX, what's your name? After being disgusted in front of the client, Xiao Si approached her with a normal expression. Sutingyu tilted her head and asked, is your name Xiao Si? Bold. Don't call our boss by his first name. Xiao Si raised his hand to stop his men, without taking his eyes away from Sutingyu. It seems that Gucci values you very much. Do you know me? Sutingyu clicked her tongue and shook her head. No, Gucci never mentioned it to me at all. Maybe you are too low-minded to even let Gucci mention it. Xiao Xi's men couldn't stand still and glared at Sutingyu. Xiao Si glanced at them, and the latter could only stop talking. Really? He never mentioned me. By the way, please change your name. Sutingyu suddenly changed the subject. Xiao Si couldn't react for a while. Ah. Sutingyu sighed and said seriously, are you trying to make others laugh to death with your name? It's just like a clown, it's not good. Boss, this bitch is insulting you. Xiao Si suppressed his smile, I know. As expected of a caring person, he is very sharp-tongued. Indeed, I have good teeth. Sutingyu showed off his big white teeth with a stern look on his face. Xiao Si. Ah, by the way, what else do you want from me? If it's to compliment me, I already know it. If nothing happens, I'll leave. Sutingyu looked like he was leaving, and Xiao Si suddenly his subordinates immediately stopped in front of the former. Want to leave? No, I still want to go to your house to find Gucci. Stay with me first. Xiao Si smiled on his face, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Why does your family care about? Sutingyu looked at Xiao Si as if he was looking at a mentally retarded person. Kikai belongs to my family. As for Guju, he can barely be considered a family member. Sutingyu came back to her senses and realized that Xiao Si thought she was related to Gucci. Well, Xiao Si had never met Sister Shan Yu, and this fairy was the only girl who could appear next to Guju. It is normal to be misunderstood by outsiders. Following this train of thought, Sutingyu imagined herself and Guju, and instantly shuddered. Hey! Guju is such a bitch, just be friends. Don't you know? Master Guju didn't participate in this round of dungeons. You can't wait for him. Sutingyu opened his eyes and told lies. This ridiculous brother is here to cause trouble for Guju. She has to find a way to get rid of this guy. Xiao Si frowned, I didn't participate, impossible. Sutingyu continued, there is nothing impossible. Last Father's Day copy, Guju did not participate. Boss, it seems that it is indeed, a copy of Father's Day. Gucci did not attend. Sutingyu's expression showed no abnormality, and he was watching the reactions of Xiao Si and others. Half-truths and half-falsehoods make it even more difficult to guess the truth. Ahem, nothing should happen now, right? I'm leaving first. Sutingyu wanted to run away again. Master Ju, that's Miss Su. At this time, a surprised voice came. Sutingyu had a bad feeling, and Xiao Si's gloomy voice came from behind, is this what you said, you didn't participate in the dungeon? Sutingyu looked towards the source of the sound, and saw Gucci and several members of Scene walking towards the side. Sutingyu looked at Gucci, who didn't show up early or late, and glared at the latter with annoyance. Gucci, are you having a twitching eye? Sutingyu, you are so talented. Didn't you see that this fairy is deep in water and fire? Gucci. Haha, is this what you said about not participating in the dungeon? Xiao Si smiled with a hint of anger in his tone. I almost got fooled by this little girl's movie. Gucci glanced at the two and roughly understood what was going on, and waved to Sutingyu, come here. This guy really has nothing to do, what are you talking about with Xiao Si? Hey, Sutingyu happily wanted to run over. As soon as Sutingyu took 2 steps, Xiao Si's eyes instantly turned cold. Without thinking, he reached out to hold the former's shoulders. Wait, Gucci frowned slightly and spoke to stop him. What are you waiting for? Master Guju panicked. Xiao Si laughed so hard that he couldn't laugh anymore, but the next second, he couldn't laugh anymore. Before Sutingyu's right hand could reach his shoulder, it was grabbed by a slender and petite hand. Immediately afterwards, as the world was spinning, Xiao Si was thrown over his shoulder and fell to the ground. Boss! Boss! Are you okay? Sutingyu clapped his hands, hummed slightly, and then jumped up and down towards Gucci. Seeing this scene, Gucci shook his head slightly in disgust. Ah! There is really something wrong with the Xiao Ci's brain. It's not good to offend anyone, so he offends this guy. Guju, Kikai. Fatty, Sutingyu tilted her head and looked at the people behind Guju. She couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when she didn't see Chin Chi and Fatty. Still looking for someone, by the way, why did you meet this trash? Huh? Trash? Are you talking about laughing to death, big brother? I don't know, they caught me suddenly and asked me about your whereabouts. Sutingyu's expression suddenly became pitiful. Grasp. Xiao Si, who was helped up by his men, almost laughed out loud when he heard the conversation between the two. Gucci, this crush of yours is quite interesting. Lover. Lover. Sutingyu and Gucci looked at each other, and within a second, they both saw full of disgust in each other's eyes. Then, Sutingyu pointed at Xiao Si, this man is sick. Gu nodded, yes, eye disease. Sutingyu lamented on his face, it's so pitiful, I'm blind at such a young age. Gucci frowned in confusion, the Xiao family shouldn't be bankrupt, right? They should have money to buy a pair of corneas. Xiao Si. Have you, said enough, Xiao Ci's face darkened a bit. Hey, is this person still there? Let's go, don't worry about this garbage. Yeah, it's so annoying. Sutingyu and Gucci still seemed to have no regard for Xiao Si, and they sang in harmony. Xiao Si, Gucci. You are still so arrogant. This is Gucci, the proud man of heaven. Aloof, still as arrogant as before. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 790. You just know, isn't he always like this? Don't pretend to be shocked, Sutingyu said in a strange tone. Gucci was a little impatient, leave him alone, it's a waste of time. Oh. Sutingyu was thinking about Kikai and Fatty, and wanted to find them as soon as possible. In this round of dungeons, there is a competitive relationship between players, but it is not to the point of life and death. The number of people on Gucci and Xiao Ci's side is equal, and no one can take advantage of them if they want to take action. Therefore, Gucci insisted on leaving, but Xiao Si couldn't stop him. Gucci, pray that one day you won't fall into my hands. Xiao Si was really unwilling to give in. He finally encountered Gucci without Chibubi by his side, but he still couldn't get over it, so he could only say harsh words. Talk. Gucci paused slightly and snorted coldly, I've been daydreaming too much. After finishing speaking, Gucci led the people and left the place. Boss, we. Xiao Ci's men hesitantly asked. Xiao Si stared at Gucci's back closely, and all the original anger on his face suddenly dissipated, as if it had never been there before. Let's go too. Yes. The other side. Sutingyu turned his head and looked around for a few times. When he didn't see Xiao Si anymore, he turned to Gucci and asked. Guju, why is that Xiao Si always staring at you? Doesn't he have anything else to do? Is he so idle? Gucci had a cold look on his face, who knows, I haven't had much dealings with him. Usually, it's the trash who takes the initiative to seek presents. Ah. Didn't you pick on someone else's hamstring? You haven't dealt with this before, Sutingyu scratched her head. At this time, seeing the elevator door in front of her, she blinked her big eyes, hey, where are you going downstairs? Gucci walked into the elevator first, yeah. Sutingyu, aren't you waiting for anyone? Isn't there a flag hanging outside the window? It's not like you've been waiting. There are people up there. Do you have a place to stay? Gucci tilted his head and asked. Sutingyu answered truthfully, there is a rental house that I rented for 3 days. In a moment, take the luggage you left in the rental house and go to the execution meeting point. Oh. After the two met, they exchanged the copy information they had with each other. Sutingyu learned that someone on Gucci's side had actually obtained the so-called treasure. Wow, is it so efficient? Sutingyu opened her mouth slightly in surprise. The historical relics you mentioned are treasures, and they are also a direction, because the treasure you just obtained is a small antique vase Gukideo. Sutingyu, now that we know the general types of treasures, we can exclude some irrelevant competitions and games based on the prizes in the competitions and games. However, this large-scale exclusion project requires Xingdu members to complete. No. Coming out of the Century building, Sutingyu and Gucci separated first. Sutingyu went back to the rental house to get some luggage. Furthermore, she also wanted to see if her prize had arrived by express delivery. As soon as she arrived at the security booth at the gate of the community where the rental house was located, Sutingyu saw the express package packed in oversized cartons at a glance. Arrive. Sutingyu went in to claim it, then returned to her rental house with the cardboard box in hand. After locking the door, she put the cardboard box into the storage ring, and also put the other luggage in the house in the same way. After that was done, Sutingyu left the rental house and went to the gathering point address given to her by Gucci. The address of the gathering point is also a community, and it is a high-end community. The environment is good, but it is not very famous, and there are no places of interest or natural scenic spots nearby. All the remaining houses in the community were rented out by the police and used as a temporary gathering point. After coming in, Sutingyu was brought to Gucci by a member of the Sing dynasty. You find one of the spare rooms as a residence. After seeing Sutingyu arrive, Gucci said, and then his eyes fell on the city map placed on the coffee table. Sutingyu sat opposite Gucci. I know this. Have you found Kikai and Fatty? No. Gucci pointed to a few points on the map. Go to these places tonight and prepare. Huh? These places are okay. Sutingyu took a few glances, and the places Gucci pointed out were all places like the antique street that she had checked before. However, it will be troublesome if we still check in tonight. Set it first, and then adapt accordingly. Oh. After running around for most of the day to check in, Sutingyu's stomach began to growl. Gucci heard this, so he asked someone to go to a nearby restaurant to pack meals and come back. Let's eat first. After packing the food, Gucci put the map away. Okay, Sutingyu rubbed her hands happily. While eating, Sutingyu suddenly remembered something and looked at Gucci. By the way, I'm free now. Guju, tell me a story. Gucci frowned. What story? Sutingyu's eyes rolled slightly. Why did you pick on Xiaoxi's hamstring in the first place? Gucci glanced at Sutingyu, who looked at him helplessly, as if he had done something heinous if he refused. There is indeed nothing to do now. Gucci thought about it and said, back then, I was going to carry out a family mission. At that time, Xiaosi was still working as a subordinate for others, because my mission had an interest dispute with Xiaoxi's superior. In one case, after the fight, I caught Xiaosi, so to scare the monkeys, I picked out his hamstring and sent him back. Later on, I saw him. It wasn't until a few years ago when the Xiao family underwent a huge change and he suddenly became the head of the Xiao family that I remembered this person existed. Sutingyu tilted his head. Then when you picked on his hamstring, his hand wasn't chopped off, right? Gucci, probably. No, if he was disabled, Xiaosi wouldn't be able to be someone else's thug at that time. Sutingyu clicked his tongue and sighed. Oh, then he is quite unlucky. After you picked on his hamstring, his organization must have abandoned him, and then someone chopped off his hand. Who exactly chopped off him? Guju, you really don't know? Gucci asked back, I don't know, a piece of trash. I need so much attention. How about I give it a chance to ask the person involved? Sutinyu chuckled and told Gucci about the idea that just popped into his head. Hearing this, Gukiwei rolled his eyes. You can try it, if you are not afraid that Xiao Si will kill you. Xiao Si's physical disability has always been an indelible concern for him. Most of the people who dared to mention it in front of him were killed by him. He, I'm here for you, we are friends. If Xiao Si wants to mess with me, you can't just stand by and watch. Heh, it's not impossible, Gucci sneered. Sutinyu immediately covered her little heart with her hands, pretending to be hurt. I don't love you anymore. Roll. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 791. Copy time, 1850. Zhaoshenkou Commercial City. After dinner, Sutinyu and Gucci's first place was here. Zhaoshenkou Commercial City is also an area dedicated to serving tourists, and there are also a large number of tourists here. A lot of unexpected things happened today. Alas, it's hard for one to happen normally. There are still many casualties. I think we should leave Sivan Gate as soon as possible. But we finally got the tickets for the 7-day tour, and we've only been there for 2 or 3 days now. So isn't the money wasted? Money or life is more important. Siwenman advertises well to the outside world, but now it seems that it is nothing more than that. Sutinyu's steps slowed down, and finally stopped completely, looking at the tourists talking next to him. Gucci noticed that Sutinyu had not followed, so he turned to look back. Following the latter's gaze, he glanced at the tourists for a few times, then walked a few steps away and said calmly, "Players will stay for another 14 days. If they have to check in again in the future, there will only be more and more local NPCs who want to leave." Sutinyu nodded slowly and murmured as he walked, "It's not a summer vacation copy. It's like running away." 10 minutes later. Arrive. Gucci looked at an old shop at the end of the street and said, "Then let's go in." This is an antique shop that collects various antiques. There were not many people in the store, and the staff at the counter were watching TV dramas, and ignored the newly arrived Sutinyu. The antiques here are all too shareable, as long as they are not damaged, otherwise you will lose money. The two looked at each other and then walked in different directions. There are 2 floors here. Sutinyu stayed on the first floor while Gucci went to the second floor. For all the antiques and treasures that could be seen, Sutinyu lightly touched them with his fingers, and his own panel popped out. Treasure: 3 color bottles of Wanhua years. Treasure: swaggering Suyan bowl during the Yuxi period. Treasure: Nuya Fangui. Treasure: bitter cold Zenjade album. Treasure: green glazed ox head pot. Treasure: animal head agate cup. Oh, there really is, but the destination of these treasures is this antique shop. Sutinyu checked them one by one, but there were some parts that were touched, but there was no reaction. Sutinyu thought that those might be fake or just imitations. Then if I spend money to buy it, will the owner become me? And the treasures bought with money should be included in the rules, right? After Sutinyu finished checking the antiques on the first floor, he saw Gucci coming down. However, he walked towards the counter and seemed to be talking to the staff. Okay. ASAP. Okay, please wait a moment. Sutinyu walked closer and overheard some of the conversation. The staff in the store packed several antiques and brought them to Gucci. Are you planning to spend money to buy it? Sutinyu quickly understood what Gucci meant. Gucci explained, well, they are all relatively cheap. There are many genuine products in the store, but if they are found to be genuine, the price will usually be relatively high. However, Gucci was just picking up some items and found a few genuine ones, but the prices were not high and he purchased them. Are you trying to see if you can change your ownership? After Gucci confirmed that they were the antiques he wanted, he took out his bank card and paid for them. Take it. Gucci handed 2 antiques to Sutinyu and took the remaining 2 pieces himself. After leaving the antique store, Sutinyu couldn't wait to search for information. The owner of the fragment of Fuchsia Mountain dwelling picture, player he. The owner of the fragments of the Demon Tiger Eater seed, player he. Hey, has it really changed? Sutinyu looked at Gucci, who was standing aside. The expected result did not surprise Gucci. He found a place with few people and put all 4 antiques into the inventory. Can only be used within the dungeon. It seems that it cannot be taken out of the dungeon. After that was done, the 2 of them continued on their way to the next location. Sutinyu asked, "You want it? I can take it out." "No need, this is a replica of an antique. It's worthless in our world," Gucci said. "That's right," Sutinyu nodded in agreement. "Are we still going to the auction house?" "No, go shopping," Gucci shook his head. Hearing this, Sutinyu blinked his big eyes. "Do you want to continue picking up leaks?" Dobeo is also a place dedicated to buying and selling antiques, but the antiques there are all uneven, and the quality and authenticity cannot be guaranteed. You can only rely on vision and luck. Although it is not as reliable as a regular store, the price is correspondingly lower. If you are really lucky, you can find priceless antiques for just a few hundred yuan. When players come into contact with real treasures, the panel will pop up automatically. Even without professional knowledge, they can easily distinguish the real treasure from the fake. Yes, the price at the auction site is higher. It's not cost-effective to buy there, Gucci explained. Sutinyu muttered, "Guju, aren't you a rich man?" The rich and the people who are taken advantage of are 2 different concepts. Yeah, that's right. You'd be a fool not to take advantage of it. When the 2 came to the market, they separated and went to each stall to scan for goods. "I want this 300. This 1000. It's too expensive, 200 is as high as the sky. This is broken in several places, you still need 500? 50 at most." Every time Sutinyu went to a stall, he would inevitably have to haggle over the price. He knew in his heart that it was a treasure, but he didn't reveal anything about it on his face. Not only that, he also belittled the treasure with words to reduce the suspicion of the stall owner. Most of the people who set up stalls here have little money to rent a shop. Most of the antiques on hand may be fake, and the authenticity of the remaining few cannot be identified. Therefore, it is easier to negotiate the price than in a regular store. Sutinyu wandered around and bought a lot of treasures at low prices. Sometimes there were too many to spare, so Sutinyu would find a deserted corner, put them into the inventory, and then continue to the next stall to scan for goods. Just when Sutinyu was picking up the missing items, the panel popped out. "Dear Angel Player, hello, your 7th journey point at Sivan Gate is Fire Tree and Silver Flower. Please arrive at the target site within 1.5 hours, thank you for your cooperation." Did you check in? Sutinyu glanced at the time, it was almost 21 o'clock, Guju should also have received the mission. Sutinyu checked the fireworks and found that it was a place dedicated to setting off fireworks. It was not far from him and could be reached in half an hour, so he went to find Gucci first and informed the latter. But when they found Gucci, the 2 exchanged information and found that the check-in points of both parties were coincident, and they were also the same. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 792. The same, Sutinyu looked at Gucci, is there any pattern to the check-in points? Maybe players in the same area nearby have the same check-in points. Go and clock in first. If you guessed correctly, you will have to clock in 3 times tonight. The 2 came to the parking space, Gucci took out the car keys and opened the door. Gucci drove in front, while Sutinyu got into the back seat. Sutinyu thought about how hard she had been riding her bicycle to clock in all day today, and couldn't help but sigh, "Guju, you have so much money, You just bought a car in the dungeon. Gucci turned the steering wheel and drove out of the parking lot. I didn't buy it, I rented it. Ah. Rented? Sutinyu was very surprised. What? Is there a problem? Sutinyu shook her head. Yeah, there's no problem. I just feel that renting a car is not in line with your reputation as Gujuyi. Gucci sneered, do I look stupid? If you only survive in the dungeon for 15 days, no matter how wealthy you are, you won't need to buy a car or a house. He, you're not stupid, you're not stupid. Sutinyu grabbed the passenger seat with both hands and looked at Gucci, who was driving. Fireworks is a place where fireworks are set off. The accident that will happen may be related to the fireworks accident. Fireworks contain gunpowder. If there is an accident, in short, be careful and stay away from the fireworks there. As soon as the check-in point is refreshed, we will leave Gukideo. Yes, Sutinyu nodded. If he was driving, the time he would arrive at the check-in point should be earlier than the time Sutinyu had just estimated. 3 check-in points, the first check-in time is now 1.5 hours, the second one may be the same, and then the third one, according to the rules, the time limit should be shortened, it may become 1 hour, or even half an hour. Sutinyu counted on his fingers, then, the total time spent is about 4 hours. It is now 9 o'clock in the evening. By the time we finish clocking in, it should be midnight. Gucci, the time you calculated is just enough to use up all the time to clock in. We can speed up the clocking in and leave more free time. Right. 20 minutes later. Beep, boom dash. After getting off the car, Sutinyu raised his head slightly, and several bright fireworks bloomed in the night sky. Some people on the ground were laughing and playing, and some were raising their hands to take pictures. It's here, just wait until the check-in point is refreshed. Sutinyu just turned around to look for Gucci, but found that he was missing. Hello. When Sutinyu heard the cry, she quickly turned around and looked behind her, and saw Gucci walking towards him carrying a bag of things. Looking behind him, there were rows of snack shops. Sutinyu blinked his big eyes. You want to eat? Gucci threw over a small bag of snacks. Sutinyu reached out to take it, but out of the corner of her eye she watched Gucci curiously put the remaining snacks into the car, and asked, why did you buy so many? Gucci didn't look like he liked snacks. Wow. Gucci closed the car door. Qinlin was found. The other members of Seeing just called and said they met Qinlin and Fen Nanbei. Sutinyu tore open the snack bag and curled her lips. Close it and I'll bring you a pack. No wonder Gucci suddenly went to buy something to eat. There is also barbecue. I smell it, I want it too. Sutinyu was very dissatisfied. She felt it was necessary to let Gucci understand that this kind of differential treatment was not advisable. Let's talk about it when we get back. Sutinyu felt distressed. It won't taste good when it's cold. There is a disposable thermos box to keep it warm, so you don't have to worry about it. Gucci still refused. Then I'll buy some too. Sutinyu was about to leave when the panel popped up at an inappropriate time. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for completing the check-in achievement of Visit Here in Huashi Yinhua. The 8th journey point is, Enchanted by the Mountains and Lakes. Please arrive at the target site within 1.5 hours, thank you for your cooperation. Sutinyu read the panel and asked, your check-in point is also that you are obsessed with mountains and lakes. Let's go. Gucci's eyes narrowed slightly and he reached out to open the car door. The check-in point is refreshed, which means an accident is coming. I haven't finished eating yet. Sutinyu tightly grasped the mouth of the bag she tore open to prevent the snacks inside from falling out. Get in the car and eat on the way. As soon as Gucci finished speaking, he turned around and saw Sutinyu slipping into the car. Sutinyu sat firmly and urged, open up. As he spoke, he didn't forget to grab some snacks and stuff them into his mouth. Seeing this, Gucci turned around, started the car and turned the steering wheel. Bang bang dash. Almost at the same time, there was an explosion in the square. Old son, are you okay? Here, why did the fireworks explode in advance? Sutinyu was lying on the car window and accidentally saw several large trucks parked at the edge of the square, with fireworks patterns printed on the vehicles. Oops, Guju, there are fireworks on the car over there. Gucci glanced at the cars, turned the steering wheel, and moved away. Bang bang dash. The explosion sounded again, and smoke with the smell of gunpowder swept into the air and lingered for a long time. Gucci said, "Route." Okay, Sutinyu understood instantly, pressed the navigation voice playback button on his phone, and threw it into the passenger seat. Get ready to go. The whole journey is 35.8 kilometers and takes about 46 minutes. This navigation has been turned on. Turn right after 80 meters. The voice of voice navigation slowly sounded from the mobile phone. I'm fascinated by the mountains and lakes. I wonder what accident will happen this time. Sutinyu raised his head and poured the remaining snacks in the bag into his mouth. Gucci, sit tight. After saying this, Sutinyu clearly felt that the speed of the car had become much faster. Suting's fish eyes turned slightly and landed on the bag containing snacks on the passenger seat. Guju, tell me, why are there so many accidents? What kind of trouble does the copy want to do? Ask Yuji. Sutinyu quietly stretched out his hand. There are still 14 days. Now, checking in will be accompanied by accidents, but accidents only occur at the check-in point and will not affect other places. In this way, for players who are already mentally prepared, said, the threat is not big. Do you think this does not meet the 9-star difficulty level? Yes, Sutinyu dug out a small hole, grabbed a bag of unopened snacks, and ate it happily. Also, wow, since treasures are historical relics, they can be obtained through trading, then why do we need to add a game to the main storyline rules? Sutinyu smashed his mouth, bent down, and wanted to get it. Gucci took out a glove on his hand, twisted a corner, and slapped the back of someone's dishonest hand. Ouch! Sutinyu suddenly retracted his hand. Be honest, Gucci said calmly. Sutinyu pouted, stingy. What you just said is indeed a source of doubt. However, you also said that there are still 14 days, and maybe there will be changes later. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 793. 7th Young Master, is your check-in point the city government building? Then let's go there together. It had been almost a day since Qin entered the dungeon, and he finally met someone he knew slightly. He was an old member of Scene. He had also participated in the Children's Day dungeon and the Dragon Boat Festival dungeon before. Qin had some impression of him. After learning that Sutinyu and Gucci had also met, they felt a little relieved. However, you still need to check in now, otherwise you will go back to find someone immediately. Qin's 8th check-in point was at the city hall at Suwinmen. The city government will close the area for ordinary citizens to enter and exit the city hall after 22:30. Therefore, in addition to arriving at the check-in point within the time specified by the panel system, you also need to arrive before the city hall closes. Copy time, 22:15. City Hall, 1st floor, lobby. After the members of Qin Kahising arrived at the city hall, they waited for the check-in point to be refreshed. Qi Xiao, I'm going to make a quickie at this time, the man coughed lightly and pointed to the toilet sign posted on the corner of the wall. Ye Qin Kwei nodded. Qin leaned against the pillar alone and glanced randomly into the hall. This is the 1st floor of the city hall, just a lobby. It will be closed in 10 minutes. From the corner of his eye, he saw a figure coming out from the direction of the toilet. Qin thought it was a member of Scene who came out, but when he looked over, he found that it was not, it was a strange middle-aged man. Out of instinct, Qin avoided it and didn't let the man see him. Will this work or not, Sci? The pot-bellied Mediterranean man frowned. Suddenly, the mobile phone in his pocket rang. He raised his hand and tapped the earphone in his left ear to answer the call. Qin didn't care much. Just when he was about to look away, he saw the Mediterranean man's expression suddenly changed. Why is this? Then, from the intermittent sounds, Qin roughly guessed who this person seemed to be arguing with. In the end, the Mediterranean man seemed to be persuaded, the matter has come to this, there is no turning back. After the call ended, Qin saw that the man seemed to be looking around nervously, so he silently shrank his body and completely hid his body behind the pillar. After no one seemed strange, the Mediterranean man regained his composure, straightened his appearance, and took the elevator upstairs. Qin turned his head and stared at the elevator floors. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, in the middle, the elevator stopped twice, on the 4th and 6th floors, and finally stopped on the 18th floor. 4, 6, 18, Qin searched online for the floor functions of the city government building. The offices below the 10th floor are for ordinary personnel, while the 18th floor has the mayor's secretary's office. Later, Qin wanted to check the mayor's secretary's information, but the man who had just gone to the toilet trotted over. Qi Xiao, the clock has been refreshed. Well, let's go. Qin looked at the panel that popped up in front of him and agreed softly. But when she finally left, Qin couldn't help but look back at the elevator entrance. It's strange, we've all come out, why haven't we seen any accidents? After the car gradually moved away from the city hall, the man in charge of driving the vehicle murmured in confusion. Qin sat in the passenger seat and turned to look at the city government building outside the window, her eyes flashing with brightness. It's either a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. Ah! Qi Xiao, what did you say? Nothing. At this time. City Hall building, 22nd floor, Mayor's office. Don't blame me, it's all from above. The Mediterranean man's hands were covered with blood. He looked at the limp body of the man in front of him and murmured to himself, it's all your fault. Who told you to refuse, agree, who asked you to? As he spoke, the Mediterranean man seemed to be in a daze, and a trace of red light suddenly flashed in his eyes. The ground was in a mess, with all kinds of dirt and fallen leaves scattered on the supposedly tidy floor. Hiss. Suddenly, I remembered some squirming noise. The Mediterranean man turned his head blankly and looked at the wide-open floor-to-ceiling window not far away. The balcony was filled with greenery. In a potted plant, a drop of blood-red water dropped on the dark green branches and leaves, crystal clear. Fascinated by mountains and lakes. Wow, this is the Zwickson mountain lake. You can really see the shadows of the mountains in the water on the opposite side. Sotingu lowered the window and looked outside with wide eyes, full of amazement. The night was dark, reflected on the calm lake. And on the lake in the distance, there is a dark shadow imprinted on it, like the shadow of the mountains. But the problem is that although there are some raised hills around the lake, they are far away from the lake. No matter what angle it is reflected, it will not be reflected on the lake. This spectacle usually only appears at night. Sotingu took out his mobile phone and found out the information about Zwickson Kunchen Lake. Hey, this lake couldn't have been formed naturally. And it didn't exist very long, just 200 or 300 years ago. Natural landscapes generally evolve over hundreds of thousands of years, but those who are fascinated by mountains and lakes are so young. This should be considered the area where I am fascinated by Kunchen Lake. Let's wait for the check-in point to be refreshed before going to the nearest antique street. Okay, Sutinyu had no objection. By the way, Guju, how many treasures have you got? Sutinyu also gained a lot when they separated to look for treasures before, but he didn't have time to ask about it. Gucci lowered the window and looked at the lake. The shadow there. Are there any huge rocks at the bottom of the lake? Ah, I don't know. It is said on the internet that some people have speculated like this, and some people even suggested draining the lake water to find out. Sutinyu lowered his head and glanced at the phone screen for a few times. It's just that it's very strange. It's just the lake water. No matter how hard I try, I can't get it dry, and some people have dived down there, but they just found that the plants in the water at the bottom of the lake are relatively lush, and there is nothing else to find. That shadow is the reflection of the plants in the water, Gucci said. Well, this is the common saying on the internet. Sutinyu raised his head and looked at the scenery outside the car. Not to mention, the plants by the lake are growing well, and there is even a plant paradise nearby. Plant paradise? Gucci's eyes moved slightly. Hey, don't worry, just leave after the refresh is completed, and then go back to find Kikai. Sutinyu rubbed his hands, and quietly took out a pack of new snacks while he was not paying attention. Gucci caught a glimpse of it and was helpless. This guy must have been reincarnated as a starving ghost. Forget it, even if it was given to Qinlin, most of it might end up in this guy's stomach. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for completing the Visit Here achievement at Ziwixin Mountain Lake. The 9th journey point is City Hall. Please arrive at the target site within 40 minutes, thank you for your cooperation. Hey, it's refreshed. Sutinyu checked the location and time, and quickly opened the mobile phone navigation. This time it only lasts 40 minutes. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 794. The check-in point has been refreshed, you can go, Gucci said and started the car. And Sutinyu turned to look at the intoxicating mountains and lakes outside the car. The night is as dark as ink. There is only a crescent moon in the night sky tonight, hanging quietly on the side of the sky. All the stars are eclipsed. She shyly and timidly hides among the layers of clouds and mist, making it difficult to find her trace. Correct. Why didn't the accident happen here? As Sutinyu looked at the Ziwixin mountains and lakes that were getting further and further away in his field of vision, this idea popped into his mind. The splash-like darkness enveloped the entire lake. Except for the bright color reflected by the crescent moon and the street lights by the lake, there was no other light. The night wind blew past, and the lake surface was filled with layers of ripples, like the strange scales of fish and dragons. The mountains on the lake also trembled slowly. Lakeside. On the walkway paved with blue stones, a young man and woman walked together. Zioxiu, I have something to tell you. Finally, the man plucked up the courage to speak. The woman seemed to feel something, her face was slightly flushed, and her eyes were wandering. What do you want to say? Zioxiu, actually I. The man considered the next words. Zioxiu, please go forward and wait until I tell you to look back, okay? Yeah, the woman nodded quickly, but slowly realized that her attitude was a bit eager, and her face flushed even more. She ran forward in a few steps and shouted without looking back, I'm leaving. You. The woman fell into her own sweet imagination, her eyes shining with a certain light of expectation. Are you okay? The woman's rationality returned a little, and she suddenly felt a swish crawling sound behind her, and turned back in confusion. Half an hour later, a figure appeared on the bluestone road by the lake. The light from the street lamp shone on the man's still immature face, making him look even more innocent and harmless. Suddenly, the boy felt as if he had stepped on something sticky on the sole of his foot, so he moved his right foot away and looked down. Next to it, the dim yellow street light shines on the dark bluestone road, which is a little hazy. The boy turned on the flashlight of his mobile phone and took a photo. Is this blood? The boy frowned slightly. This kind of semi-dry and semi-wet sticky blood was in the same state as the blood of chickens and ducks when every family in the village slaughtered chickens and ducks during festivals and waited for it to coagulate and dry. But, what kind of blood is this? No livestock or animals were seen by the lake, and the nearly 3 meters of blood sprinkled on it was not the amount of blood that ordinary small animals could have. The boy bent down, dipped some blood with his index finger, and then sniffed it gently. Gradually, his face became serious. Human blood. The blood of all animals looks the same, but actually has slight differences, and boys happen to be able to distinguish the differences with their keen sense of smell. At the same time, Guju, players checking in everywhere today must have caused various accidents. SurvivalGame suddenly became troubled. It must be big news, right? Gucci's cell phone was navigating, so Sutingyu used her cell phone to search online. Sutingyu searched for the SurvivalGame accident, and there were many new posts on it, all discussing the various accidents that happened today, and even making a lot of panic-spreading remarks. When Sutingyu saw some of the posts, she was surprised. Holy shit, I was so frightened that I almost peed today. I actually saw a big water monster, right at the Bihai port of Siwanman. Have you noticed, the plants in the city have been acting weird recently? Many plants that should have withered during the season are all growing green. There is a cat and dog rescue center near my home for some reason today. All the cats and dogs went crazy and bit people. I heard that several volunteers were bitten and sent to the hospital. Not just today. There seems to be signs in the past few months. Do you remember the doomsday posts I posted before? Aren't all the doomsday posts debunked? It's just the crazy words of a few crazy people. Doomsday post, Sutingyu murmured, and then went to check this again, only to find that no such results were found, and all information about the doomsday post had been completely erased. Sutingyu informed Gucci of the situation. The end of the world? There are abnormalities in plants and animals. Could it be a copy of the disaster? Gucci guessed. Sutingyu, but among so many accidents, in addition to natural disasters, there are also man-made disasters. I have encountered accidents where people robbed and stole cultural relics in public. So how can we explain these? It is impossible for these people to just believe that there is a doomsday and then indulge yourself to rob and steal, right? If there is really an apocalypse, shouldn't we think about escaping? Or hoard food and water? Gucci remained silent. This is indeed. But since the doomsday information has been revealed, regardless of whether it is true or false, let's start preparing first, Gucci said. Sutingyu nodded. Yes, it's time to prepare. Now, the known rules given in the dungeon are pure competition between players. However, the urine properties of active dungeons are generally half leaked and half hidden. Maybe it's really true. It may have catastrophic properties. Gucci glanced at the navigation. Only the last section of the road was left. Let's check in at the last place first. If nothing else, the City Hall building is the last check-in point today. Besides, this is still the City Hall, so we might want to pay attention. Looking at the reactions of local government personnel, before a disaster strikes, the top brass often know more than the ordinary people at the bottom. Sutingyu thought of the real world and the unknown 9.1 in Parallel Paradise. Indeed, no matter which world it was, the senior people had the greatest initiative. City Hall. Gucci stopped the car and came down. It's closed, but there are lights above. After Sutingyu got out of the car, she looked up at the top of the building in front of her. Go in and clock in first. The door is closed, but the City Hall area is not just a building, it has a square and an underground parking lot, and there is a wall more than 3 meters high on the outside. However, this wall could not stop Sutingyu and the two of them, so they easily climbed over the wall and entered. When you step into the City Hall area, you are complete when you check in. It seems like it's past working hours. Sutingyu glanced at the locked door of the building. Gucci looked around. It's very peaceful, but we're late, and it's not easy to go in now. You have to survive here for 15 days. If you offend the local government on the first day and are mistaken for someone with bad motives, it will only cause a lot of trouble. Suddenly, a beam of light appeared around the corner, flickering. Gucci, someone is coming. The two immediately found a place to hide. Slowly, I heard footsteps. Sutinyu poked her head out and saw a man in security uniform walking down the aisle with a flashlight in his hand. After the others left, the two came out. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 795. Gucci glanced at the camera not far away. It was still a blind spot and the camera couldn't capture it, but if he went in again, it would be hard to tell. Gucci, let's leave first and come back when we are fully prepared. Yes, Sutinyu did have an invisible hat in his hand, but it could only be used by one person. Due to the appearance of the Doomsday Post, Sutinyu and Gucci temporarily changed their minds and continued to search the city instead of returning to the meeting point so early. Before I knew it, midnight was here. The copy came the next day. In the car, Sutinyu's panel popped up. Dear cool summer day players, please note that the battle mode of this round of dungeons will start immediately every 3 hours. Players with treasures will reveal their hidden locations, and the time limit is 3 minutes. Players are requested to actively participate in the challenge mode, and I wish all players a happy game and a happy journey. Sutinyu's eyes narrowed, and he scrolled down the panel. As expected, he saw a map, which was covered with a green dot and countless red dots. The green dot is himself, while the red dots are the other players. The red dot closest to Sutinyu is Gucci. Guju, Sutinyu called out. Gucci stared at his panel. It seems that we can't go back first. Both of them have treasures on them. If they return directly to the meeting point and expose them, it will only increase trouble. Sutinyu made a rough count and found that there were only a few hundred red dots. It's only been 1 day, but there are still only a few players who have obtained treasures. Sutinyu glanced at the treasures he put in his inventory. The tone was slightly depressed. Is it exposed because it was put in the inventory? Hearing this, Gucci immediately stopped the car, took out all the treasures in his inventory and put them in the car, and then looked at the panel map. No, it's useless. Gucci frowned. There is still a display on the map, and it has changed from one green dot to several. I should have taken them all out, and the individual has become a group. Maybe it's a matter of who owns it. These all belong to you. It's useless to take them out. Sutinyu murmured slightly. Is there any way to deceive the copy, so that the treasure does not exist? Keep holding the treasure like this. Exposed. Suddenly, Sutinyu thought of a possibility. By the way, the ring. Sutinyu's eyes lit up. Since the items stored in the storage ring can be brought into the dungeon regardless of the rules and used at will, then Sutinyu immediately started experimenting. In an instant, Sutinyu transferred the treasures in the inventory to the storage ring. When she looked at the map again, the small green dot representing herself had dimmed. Guju, take a look and see if you can still see where I am. Upon hearing this, Gucci looked at his map. No more. How did you do it? Sutinyu was extremely excited. I'll explain to you later, Guju. I'll try to collect your treasure and see if your location can be hidden. If it can, we won't have to worry about finding other players. Gucci was silent for a moment and nodded. Okay. With Gucci's consent, Sutinyu waved her hand and easily put all Gucci's treasures into the storage ring. When Sutinyu looked at the map again, he found that Gucci's location had really disappeared. This method works. Let's go. Let's go find other players. Sutinyu glanced at the map and immediately spotted the little red dot closest to them. He stretched out his hand and poked it, and a small bullet popped up from the little red dot. Window. Player, your uncle or your uncle has treasures, 2 pieces. This is the player's game nickname? Good guy, who took it? Guju, this your uncle, or your uncle is the closest to us, and he has 2 treasures on him. How about we attack this guy first, Sutingyu suggested. Okay, Gucci noted the location and started the car, then set off quickly before anyone gets away. Okay, Sutingyu geared up, the little red dots on the map are moving. I guess I'm either running away or wanting to have a fight as soon as possible. I'm speeding up. Sit tight, Gucci reminded him and began to speed up, approaching the red dot. The red dot was only 2 streets away, and Sutingyu and Gucci arrived at the scene before the map even disappeared. But now is the time for nightlife. As a tourist city, there are many people active at night. The map has disappeared, and now it's hard to tell who is the player and who is the NPC. Get out of the car, Gucci said, unbuckled his seatbelt and got out of the car first. If you want to identify players, you can only rely on the panel query function within 2 meters. After Sutingyu got out of the car, she glanced around. Suddenly, she seemed to see a familiar figure and slowly opened her eyes. Through the glass door of a store, a person stood in front of the counter, seeming to be talking to the clerk. He has a tall and thin figure, and is wearing a complete set of sportswear and sneakers, which gives him a somewhat youthful atmosphere. The man inadvertently turned around and glanced outside the store. His face was a bit delicate and young, but his expression seemed a bit solemn at this time. This person! Sutingyu exclaimed, "Hey, this is Xiaozu. Weichu? How could he? He is also a player," Gu Kigzun said, frowning slightly after seeing the man clearly. Sutingyu turned around and asked, "Guju, did you know he was a player?" Weichu was the person Gucci found to take care of Qinchi. Originally, Qinchi could now take care of himself, and Gucci also planned to find time to transfer Weichu away and arrange for him another ordinary high-paying job. After all, he is an outsider who does not know about the parallel paradise, and it is very inconvenient to live and get along with him. Only. Gucci shook his head slightly, "I don't know." "Oh, so Xiaozu has been hiding this from us for a long time," Sutingyu raised his eyebrows slightly. "It was my negligence." Gucci's tone was slightly cold, "I guess he has not been a player for a long time. I have investigated him before, and there is nothing abnormal, maybe after coming to the manor. No wonder, sometimes I can't see people. I originally thought Xiaozu was honest and obedient. Since he is a player, he should have seen Qinchi's panel that was always open in the manor, then." In the middle of speaking, Sutingyu paused and said, "Guju, what should we do?" "What can I do? Either join the punishment, or..." When it comes to Qinchi, Gucci cannot be absolutely calm and self-possessed. Now that there is such a big loophole, he can only try his best to make up for it. The most important point is that Gucci is now worried about whether Qi Weichu's identity is really innocent. A child from a mountainous countryside was suddenly selected by a mysterious survival game, and then found players like him around him, but he was able to remain calm and not show any signs of strangeness. Is this character cultivated with ulterior motives, or is it so talented? "Guju, let's go and block people first." Sutingyu pursed his lips. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 796. The two separated in 2 directions and walked quickly towards the shop. After Sutingyu got closer, he noticed that this store was a porcelain shop, specializing in selling all kinds of porcelain. Just when the two of them were less than 5 meters away from the store, Weichu, who had been alert inside, noticed something strange and looked towards the door. Just in time, he met Sutingyu's eyes, and their eyes met awkwardly. For it. Hello, adhering to the principle of "I won't be embarrassed if I go first," Sutingyu waved hello immediately. Wei Chu's expression changed several times, his eyes kept glancing outside, and found that although the two of them seemed peaceful, they had invisibly blocked all his escape routes. Moreover, even if he can run away now, he won't be able to run away when he returns to the real world. Furthermore, if he runs away, wouldn't it appear that he has a guilty conscience? He didn't do anything bad. Finally, a bright smile appeared on Wei Chu's face. Boss, Sister Su, what a coincidence. In just a few seconds, the two of them had entered the store, and Wei Chu had no chance of escaping. Sutingyu reached out and patted Wei Chu's shoulder in a friendly manner. Brother Xiaozu, what are you doing here? Seeing that the distance between the two was close to 2 meters, Sutingyu directly inquired Wei Chu's player information. Your uncle is still your uncle. Sutingyu looked at the familiar game nickname and twitched the corner of his mouth slightly. Come on. 2 treasures are gone. Putting aside the fact that both sides concealed their identity as players, Sutingyu and Wei Chu knew each other in the real world and had no grudges. They were considered friends. Sutingyu was too embarrassed to directly rob the latter of his treasures. And the most important thing, Sutingyu is 3 years older than Wei Chu. Rounding it all off, he's her brother. Sutingyu was not so shameless when she started to snatch her brother's things. Well, unless this cheap brother made a mistake, she could justifiably educate the cheap brother. Ahem, I'm buying 2 pieces of porcelain. Wei Chu didn't want to hide it. Sutingyu and the two found him with such a clear purpose. It must be related to the map just now, so they couldn't hide it. This customer, do you still need to return the product? The NPC clerk on the side asked. Sutingyu blinked her big eyes. Return? What kind of goods are you returning? Wei Chu explained obediently. Sister Su, I just want to go back and come back later to buy it back. Sutingyu understood. Wei Chu's method is good. If the porcelain is returned to the store, it will no longer belong to Wei Chu. Naturally, it will not be displayed on the map. Unfortunately, Wei Chu took a step back and was targeted by Sutingyu and the others. No need to retreat, I have a way to help you solve that problem. Sutingyu raised his chin slightly. Because there were NPCs present, Sutingyu could only play riddles. Wei Chu's eyes changed slightly. Really? Really? Hurry up, time is running out. Sutingyu understood Wei Chu's concerns. He was just afraid that he would steal the treasure. But now, instead of grabbing the treasure, Sutingyu wanted to find a place to ask Wei Chu about himself. Case. Okay, no need to return it, just pack it all for me. Wei Chu turned around and told the clerk. The 2 pieces of porcelain had already been packaged and paid for. When the clerk heard this, he turned around and took the 2 packaging boxes and handed them to Wei Chu. Welcome next time. After the 3 of them left the store, Wei Chu asked tentatively, Sister Su, do you want to ask something? Not only do I want to ask, but your boss also wants to ask. Sutingyu smiled kindly and pointed to the car. Let's go, let's talk in the car. Now that the map has disappeared, as long as you move your position and you are not so unlucky, you should not be bumped into by other players and then forcibly fight. Hearing this, Wei Chu turned around and glanced at Gucci, who had been silent, feeling a little uneasy. After all, he is still working for his boss, and the boss also knows his background and origins, as well as the people in his village. Okay, Wei Chu nodded. After the 3 of them got into the car one after another, Gucci suddenly said, when? Wei Chu looked stern and considered every word. Not long after I came to the manor, on June 12th, I became a player. Sutingyu calculated the time and found that 2 or 3 days after she went 20,000 miles under the sea, Wei Chu actually hid it from their noses for more than half a month. I'm just curious, what are your flaws? You don't seem like a flawed person. Sutingyu looked Wei Chu up and down. Whether it was from Qin-Chi's perspective or the selection criteria for Parallel Paradise's internal beta test, Qi would definitely look for healthy young people when looking for caregivers for Qin-Chi. Then, Qi must have investigated Wei Chu himself in advance to see if there was anything wrong with him. But Wei Chu has become a closed beta player, which means there is something wrong with him. Hearing this, Wei Chu touched his nose and said a little embarrassedly, "I have no sense of smell." When he was a child, his sense of smell was still very sensitive, but after an accident, he couldn't smell it anymore. "Smell?" Sutingyu looked at Qi. Qi said softly, "One of the tests for nursing staff is whether they can tolerate odors. His test results were the best. At that time, I didn't think of this aspect." When he mentioned the caregiver, Wei Chu's face changed slightly. While eating and living together, Wei Chu naturally knew that Qin-Chi could stand up. Does that mean he no longer needed him? "Are you going to lose your job? Since you are also a player, you should know that players' identities in the real world cannot be disclosed at will, and you already knew our player identities more than half a month ago." Gucci's voice was calm. Not slow, as if simply stating one thing. But Wei Chu could still hear the coldness in it, and he felt wary and his body tensed up. Facing his boss, who was quite difficult to get along with, Wei Chu felt a little nervous and did not dare to relax even a little bit. This feeling of danger, even the big python he encountered when he went into the mountains when he was a child, did not give him such a sense of oppression. Wei Chu couldn't decide what Gucci was thinking, so he could only express his loyalty. "Don't worry, boss, I won't talk nonsense." "Well, just like in the play, those who understand current affairs are called heroes." Gucci asked, "Have you had any contact with any alliance or organization since you became a player?" "Alliance? Organization?" Wei Chu blinked slowly. "I've never seen this before. I always participate in dungeons by myself." Before leaving the village chief told him that the outside world is different from the village, and there are good people and bad people. He should be careful and don't trust anyone. Wei Chu listened. Therefore, in a strange copy, he always keeps a distance from everyone. Gucci's face was cold and indifferent, and he was just asking a routine question. As for the authenticity, he would verify it when the time comes. "Give you a choice, join us, or being a bug in a survival game." Author, Kuanke. Chapter 797. I'm joining. Before Gucci could finish speaking, Wei Chu made his choice directly. Wei Chu felt helpless. There seemed to be two choices, but according to the current posture of the two people, he had no choice. Wei Chu actually doesn't care whether he joins Sutingyu and Gucci or not. In the real world, he is still an employee under Gucci. So if he becomes Gucci's employee as a player, it seems that it is also a matter of course. Well, the most important thing is that as a boss, Gucci is quite generous and his salary is generous. Qin-Chi can stand up now, so he doesn't need a caregiver. Wei Chu agrees to join Scene now, which is equivalent to changing jobs in time before the former boss gets fired. Wei Chu thought about it for a while and suddenly felt that he was not at a disadvantage at all. Gucci glanced at Wei Chu, surprised that the latter should be so neat. It seemed that this person was not as mellow and honest as mentioned in the information. Hey, then everyone is happy." Sutingyu smiled and took out a bag of snacks from the passenger seat and handed it to Wei Chu very grandly. "Here, it's a meeting gift, you're welcome. I still want some if you want." "Well." As he said that, he continued to take another pack. "Ah. Thank you, Sister Su." Wei Chu looked at the snacks in his hand and was stunned for a second before thanking him. Gucci, who was driving, very capable, using his things as a favor. Feeling someone's cold gaze, Sutingyu smiled disapprovingly and changed the subject. Okay, let's get down to business. The date mode has already started. We can't miss it." Wei Chu was embarrassed, but now the map is gone. There is no map, but there are a lot of players, so they will always meet each other, and if there is a battle, there will inevitably be some noise. Su Tingting talked eloquently. Sister Su, you mean, we? Wei Chu's eyes brightened slightly. That's right. We want to be chirping Oriole. Su Tingyu raised his chin slightly. Ah. Chirping, Wei Chu was a little confused. What kind of description is this? Gucci started the car and started to set off. The battle mode has just begun. There is no need to go to such trouble to find someone to fight with. There are more ready-made treasures. Su Tingyu suddenly realized and immediately gave up his chattering thoughts. Yes, there are only a few hundred red dots now, which means hundreds of players have treasures. If there are less red dots, it will be difficult for people to find them without a map. Ready-made treasures. Wei Chu's eyes fell on the two porcelains on his hand. Su Tingyu tilted her head and glanced. Xiaozu, that store just now sells modern porcelain, right? It is a bit strange for historical relics to appear in ordinary porcelain shops. Yes, Sister Su, I discovered this accidentally. I have looked at the rest of the porcelain in the store, and these two are treasures. After saying that, Wei Chu glanced at Gucci, who was driving in front of him, and then at himself. Su Tingyu, who was standing next to him, hesitated for a moment and said, Sister Su, there are exactly two of them. How about, you and the boss take one each and treat it as a filial gift from me? The village chief said that when you go out, you should have a good relationship with your superiors and colleagues. Wei Chu searched for various ways in his mind, and finally thought that the village had not paved roads and installed street lights in the past few years. The village chief and several uncles and uncles took some gifts to a distant place. When they came back, they were empty-handed, but on the face it's all a bit more relaxed. Later, the main road was paved to the entrance of the village. No, 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 Su Tingyu waved her hand, you are only two, keep it. Besides, one of us is your boss and the other is Sister Su. Is it possible that we have to take your things by force? Moreover, I will tell you secretly. Oh. Su Tingyu blinked her big eyes and lowered her voice so low that even the other two people in the car heard, we have a lot. Do you want one? After saying that, Su Tingyu stared at Wei Chu's face changed, and he was very curious about how the latter would react. He, you have to grab it, you have to grab it, you have to grab it. Su Tingyu felt that the meteor rod in the inventory wanted to come out and swing around. In an instant, Wei Chu's hair suddenly stood up all over his body, as if he was being targeted by a mysterious and extremely dangerous beast. He shook his head and waved his hands repeatedly, no, no, no. I can look for it myself. The elders in the village once said that there is no success if you don't get paid. You won't bother Sister Su. Really? Really? Are you sure you don't want to? Sure, sure. Well, okay then, Su Tingyu said with regret on his face. Gucci's face was calm as he listened to Su Yanyu's words behind him, which were all about scaring children. He turned his head and looked at the time displayed on the car. 0:15. The navigation voice came from the mobile phone, turn right after 50 meters ahead. There were no vehicles or people on this spacious stretch of road. Even the street lights on the roadside were blocked by the lush green trees on both sides. On the horizon, I don't know when, the moon has hidden among the clouds. Gucci stared straight ahead, occasionally looking to both sides. Just as he was about to pass the curve, suddenly, a figure emerged from the dark shadow on the right side and rushed towards the car. When Gucci found out, he immediately stepped on the brakes. Boom! A dull sound came from the front of the car, and Gucci's eyes narrowed slightly. Did he hit someone? The sudden braking also startled Su Tingyu and Wei Chu in the back seat of the car. What's wrong? Wei Chu was slightly confused. He just didn't pay attention to what happened in front of him. Hit someone? Su Tingyu's eyes widened in surprise. The flash she just saw was a human figure, right? right? Go down and take a look first. Gucci unbuckled his seatbelt and pushed open the car door. Oh. Seeing this, Sutingyu and Weichu also got out of the car. There happened to be no street lights on this section of the road, so it was dark, but luckily there was a car light. Hey, are you okay? Sutingyu approached the front of the car and muttered, I didn't drive the car. If you want compensation, don't come to me. Gucci, who was behind Sutingyu, rolled his eyes invisibly when he heard this. After Weichu got out of the car, he raised his hand and touched his nose, then gently sniffed the surrounding air, and gradually frowned. Why do you feel a strange smell? As for this peculiar smell, Weichu couldn't say what was strange about it for a while. Is it possible that there is a burning garbage dump nearby? Is this the smell of garbage? Hey, why didn't this person respond? Sutingyu saw a humanoid figure lying on the road in front of the car. It had arms and legs. His face couldn't be seen clearly. He only saw a lot of hair and the length of it, almost up to a person's knees. Hello? Are you there? Sutingyu shouted several times, but there was no response. Then he turned around and followed Gucci. I seem to have fainted. What should I do? How about calling the ambulance? Gucci went back to the car and turned on the front and rear warning lights.